Rogan says the Bidens are definitely corrupt. The investigation is ongoing, but the investigation's being done by the people that are doing it anyway and haven't found anything so far. Hello there, you 6.5 million awakening wonders. Thanks for joining us on our mutual voyage to awakening, truth, and freedom. On board with us, we have Joe Rogan claiming that the Biden family are definitely corrupt, that there's sufficient and significant evidence. The investigation is ongoing, but it's being done by the person that did that plea deal that seemed a bit dubious anyway. What are they telling him? Could you investigate properly this time? Just investigate harder. Why won't you investigate? Turn on the notification bell and subscribe right now. Let's have a look at Rogan's claims and see if we can work out together whether or not the Biden's business dealings will ever be investigated with the same vigor and forensic tenacity that Trump's business endeavors and indeed other escapades are being investigated.
Joe Biden's been a goof his whole fucking career. He's always been a goof. He's been caught lying so many times. Yeah. He's so full of shit.
Do you sometimes think that actually media has changed now and the way that things are investigated has changed now because of channels like Joe Rogan, but the plethora of channels ranging from hardline investigative channels and the fact that investigative career journalists can expose stuff if they want to, and you, me, anyone with a phone can report on stories. Now, a career politician who's been around Congress their whole life, been through all of those institutions, they're gonna be exposed if they've done anything wrong ever. One thing's for sure, these kind of institutions and these kind of political figures can't survive in this kind of media environment. That's why this media environment, I believe, is being manipulated, managed and changed so that you simply can't discuss this stuff. The mainstream media, you'll notice, don't talk about Hunter Biden in the same way that independent media like Joe Rogan does. That's because they are still managed in the traditional way. Presumably, if social media sites like Twitter were infiltrated by the FBI and CIA, presumably mainstream media, legacy media organizations have relationships. You saw how they towed the line during COVID. We've got to do what's best for the country. Well, you know what they think's best for the country. Democrat government, Biden as president. That's what they think's best. You don't have to assume these people are evil. You just have to assume they have biases and institutional relationships that don't permit honest and authentic reporting. Fortunately, now there are people outside of the space that are willing to say, hold on a minute, this looks like corruption.
There's so much evidence that he's corrupt, just undeniable evidence of corruption. And the stuff with him and his son, and then the guy who just testified that was business partners with Hunter, who talked about all the different things that Joe was involved with.
Evan Archer.
Yeah. It's fucking undeniable. And the fact that mainstream news is ignoring this, except for right-wing media, it's fucking crazy.
Wouldn't you prefer a media that had biases and allegiances with a particular wing of institutional politics, but still reported on matters in an open and transparent way? Then wouldn't you trust them and the party more? If you saw CNN, Morning Joe, whatever, saying, listen, this Hunter Biden business stuff, we didn't talk about it enough at the beginning, and it was obviously kept off Twitter. That Daily Post story should never have been repressed about the laptop, but now it looks like there are dubious business dealings that have been ongoing. Wouldn't that make you feel more trust? Things have become so divided, so separatist and sectarian, that it's almost like that aspect of the media consider it to be their duty to display ongoing fealty to an aspect of the administration. That just, I think, continues to diminish trust. Let's have a look at this in more detail. Joe Biden's son Hunter will now be investigated by a special counsel with additional powers. The US Attorney General has been announced. What was the first investigation then? Look, investigate Hunter Biden, but don't try very hard. Don't use all of your powers. Just use a little bit of power. Let's see now how professional the mainstream media are, how they're better than us, and see how the representatives of the government speak in a clear and candid way that definitely isn't obfuscating, confusing, hypocritical, and sometimes just untrue.
This is a CBS News special report. I'm Margaret Brennan in Washington. We are coming to you on the air to bring you an announcement.
Everything about it actually is just grandiosity. This is my name. I'm in Washington, CNN. We are coming to you.
From the Department of Justice. Attorney General Merrick Garland is making a statement.
Ooh, a statement. Ooh, let's pull down our pants. It's a statement. Ooh, ooh, ooh.
And is making some detailed remarks that we will bring you in a moment.
Are you just filling now?
What we know is that it has to do with President Biden's son, Hunter Biden. Let's listen in.
Let's listen in. Put a glass up against your TV now. This is good, this. Put a string in a paper cup, then your friend has another paper cup at the end. What is this? It's like children's television.
Good afternoon.
I'm here today to announce the appointment of David Weiss as a special counsel.
And now he's doing it. Everything's paraphernalia and empty ceremony. Like, everyone's behaving like what they're doing is really important and significant. But I think you guys are ready for the news done by a man in a leopard print dressing gown, right? Let me know in the comments.
I have today notified the designated members of each House of Congress of the appointment.
Push in with the camera. Ooh, it's more important now.
Beginning in 2019, Mr. Weiss, in his capacity as U.S. Attorney, and along with federal law enforcement partners, began investigating allegations of certain criminal conduct by, among others, Robert Hunter Biden.
They've been doing this investigation for 6 years. They've got video evidence of criminal behaviour. They've got a paper trail that leads them to Burisma. They've got Joe Biden letters saying, oh, hope it goes well, Devon, to his business partner. And they actually are only just learning that his name's not even Hunter Biden. We've been working on this 6 years on the Hunter Biden case. This just in. That isn't his name. That's the end of the investigation. Thank you.
Found his spoon, sir.
That investigation remains ongoing.
I'm gonna need another 6 years. I was looking into someone called Hunter Biden. He's called Robert Biden. All of this was about someone else. He actually owns a laptop company and oh no, that could be him.
This appointment confirms my commitment to provide Mr. Weiss all the resources he requests. It also reaffirms that Mr. Weiss has the authority he needs to conduct a thorough investigation.
This is a really weird bit of news, isn't it? Like, about Mr. Weiss. Like, Mr. Weiss, this time we are going to let him have proper powers to investigate. Last time we told him, investigate very, very slowly. Doesn't it make you feel that the machinery of government is about providing the appearance of authenticity and transparency rather than authenticity and transparency itself? And aren't you now learning how to spot the difference? Isn't part of the success of figures like Joe Rogan based on the fact that whether you like him or agree with him, you kind of trust that he's telling you the truth? And indeed, political figures like Trump, who plainly says things that are not true sometimes, but so overtly that compared to other political figures that obfuscate and engage in such sophistry, well, actually, the investigation's being ongoing. Well, at the time, I believed it to be true. Well, that's not actually clear. You know, we're so used to a kind of odd, bureaucratic, boring, tedious, ongoing, linguistically complex set of lies that when people just are playing with us, we go, oh, God, all right, you then.
And to continue to take the steps he deems appropriate independently, based only on the facts and the law. The men and women undertaking this investigation.
See, I said men and women. Do you see how far we've come?
Who have dedicated their careers to protecting the citizens of this country. The appointment of Mr. Weiss reinforces for the American people the department's commitment.
They can't even say words like commitment because they don't mean anything, don't believe in anything. They're just bureaucrats. Remember at the beginning of the pandemic, this is Anthony Fauci. This guy, as long as you don't look at any of his past, is super reliable and we should trust everything he says, even though he doesn't trust it himself. This is the way that we understand Washington and indeed all centralized government to work now. My belief is that they are not especially corrupt. My belief is they've always been this corrupt, but now the means for investigation and communication is so profligate that they can't maintain power and control in the way that they used to. There's, I believe, a global panic about the miracle of modern communication that requires the legitimization of censorship in particular. And what we're watching here is just these old institutions desperately scrabbling to hold on to their authority when all of us can see that the emperor is nude, and it's not very impressive. One thing's for sure, the mainstream media are never going to tell you the truth about Hunter Biden and the Biden family's business dealings. That's why you have to find news sources that you trust. The mainstream media are unreliable little bloody liars. We don't know what they've admitted or de-amplified, and how can we ever trust them not to create a narrative based on their own biases? That's where our sponsor, and you know we need these guys, come in. Ground News, an app that combines thousands of articles into one place so readers and indeed independent media sources can get a full picture of what's being reported around the world. And we know it's impossible to trust a single news source, except for us, we're brilliant. So Ground News has been developed to expose bias and hold the media accountable. Check this out. For every story you get a visual breakdown of the news outlets covering it, their political biases and how factual their source is. So if you search for Hunter Biden on Ground News, you'll see how it's covered. Look at this. Total news sources 300, leaning left 70, leaning right 53, centre 122, bias distribution 50% centre. Oh, look at that, it even shows their logos. I'm starting to understand the way the system works using this. Yeah, I getcha. If I could just get into the mainframe. I feel like I'm in Mission Impossible here. Ground news lets you stay free, yeah, by releasing you from the tyranny of the mainstream media and giving you the evidence to make up your own little mind. And by giving you access to different perspectives, you can make informed decisions, stay open-minded, and find common ground, baby. To see through the media bias, why don't you subscribe to Ground News like we do, using our link below, ground.news/Russell Brand. And if you sign up before August 22nd, you'll get 30% off unlimited access. Now, let's get back to this Hunter Biden story. Last week, the New York Post reported that President Biden's family and their allies bought in at least $20 million from foreign sources, including first son Hunter Biden's business associates in Russia, Kazakhstan, and Ukraine, some of whom dined with the current commander-in-chief. So, as you know, nepotism exists in politics. People grant access for money in politics. Joe Biden, of course, like any of us would, helps his children to get on in life. The problem is it's with a bunch of Kazakhstani, Russian, and Ukrainian energy firms. There's this weird war going on at the moment. There's the receipt of extraordinary sums of money. It doesn't look good when the whole of the media is in a frenzy about the apparent corruption of Donald Trump, a possibility that I remain entirely open to, as long as that is investigated with the same veracity and tenacity as all other potential incidences of corruption. Democrats, who for years accused Trump of corruption and of breaking the law, have turned a blind eye to the dishonesty of President Joe Biden, his administration, and his family. For years, politicians such as Nancy Pelosi, congressional Democrats, and left-wing political pundits all touted in a cultish, well-rehearsed, creepy sort of unison that no one was above the law, not even a president. Yet, as time has passed, that affirmation has been anything but true. In fact, the only time Democrats seem to care about upholding the law is when the person involved has the last name Trump. The law is a tool and a weapon to ensure that their agenda can be pursued, their objectives met. The law is not an independent entity that is revered and honoured in the same way a god might have been in an earlier incarnation of civilization or pre-civilization. The law is a weapon, and you might argue that gods are similarly weapons to enshrine a set of values and to create in-groups and out-groups into other communities that you have enmity towards. Well, has that much changed? They just use bureaucracy and apparent rationalism to underwrite their own preferences and their own agenda. At this point, I think it's pretty safe to say that Hunter Biden's businesses benefited from the fact that his surname is Biden and that Joe Biden gave him favourable opportunities and favourable access. To deny that, like, this guy would have done all of these business deals even if his dad had been Ron Brand. That's my dad. It simply wouldn't have happened, although Ron Brand does have assets. When it comes to Biden and his family, there have been a completely different set of standards held compared to former President Donald Trump. Everything surrounding the investigation of Hunter Biden has been suspect since the beginning. Say what you want about Trump's legal issues and multiple indictments, there is a miscarriage of justice here that reeks of corruption. Democrats are not applying the same standards to Biden that they did for Trump. That's the fundamental argument. You can't trust people who do not apply the same standards across a whole gamut of moral or judicial issues, because otherwise we're not talking about moral and judicial issues. We're talking about favoritism, political expedience, managing elections, bringing down opponents. All of those things start to become more relevant when you see that they don't apply the same scrutiny across the board of issues, I think. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. When Trump was in office, Democrats were determined to investigate and hold anyone accountable for their illegal acts and corruption. Since Biden has been in office, Democrats' efforts at accountability have been much less vigorous. It's almost as if they create two separate realms of justice. That's not justice at all. Justice has to be evenly applied, or it is no longer justice. It's just a tool of the state. Look no further than last Friday's appointment by the Department of Justice of a special counsel to investigate Hunter Biden. The person assigned to investigate Hunter Biden, David Weiss, is the same person who negotiated the president's son's plea deal earlier this year. So the person that gave him the favourable plea deal is doing the investigation. If he gave him a favourable plea deal, what kind of investigation is likely to be conducted? Probably a favourable one, I would imagine, or at least one that takes so bloody long that by the time the results are in, think still we don't know the full facts around JFK. way, what is this process likely to look like? A thorough, fierce and prompt investigation, or a laborious task that distracts us from the facts? We, all of us, sort of know, don't we, that presidents do favours for their family, that a career politician like Joe Biden's going to have blood in his hands because of the way he's voted in previous wars, because of the way he's supported various globalist corporations, energy companies, big tech, financial industry. We know he's going to have accepted money from them. We know he stood in front of a room full of donors and said nothing's going to change when what they were offering the population after Trump was massive change. So plainly there, that's hypocrisy and lying. And that same intuition tells us that this investigation is theatre, spectacle. Look at what it looked like on the news. Now something important's going to happen. An important man's going, this is CNN, I'm the news, this is going to be great. And then he comes out, David Weiss is a special counselor. Well, that guy could come and go, look, I know it might look a bit weird, like David Weiss is the person that negotiated the special plea deal that most people now recognise is the fundamental problem, that demonstrates that this hasn't been done thoroughly or properly. So to bring the same person in looks like a horrible misstep. The only way you can get round that issue is by ignoring that issue, because if you address that issue, it tells you all you need to know. We've been schooled to think we don't understand politics properly, we must be idiots. Oh, it's ever so complicated what they're doing over there. They make it sound complicated, and indeed it probably on some degree is complicated because of the degree of hypocrisy, corruption, lying, obfuscation, concealment of facts. It probably has complexity as a result of all those competing factors. But when it comes to how do you run a community, how do you deal with competing ideas, how do you create republics and democracies and manageable systems of government, it clearly isn't like this. What these systems do is they advantage elites and prevent us from seeing how those advantages are undertaken and kept in place. That's why they're so fiercely protective of it, and that's why they have to create villains like Trump and place them centre stage. So we're all caught up in this garish, vivid, lurid, grotesque spectacle, when in fact what we should be deducing is all government is corrupt. That's why this doesn't feel like a big deal when it comes to the Trump indictments. We know Trump's probably corrupt. He exists in a world of corruption. He tells us that he does corrupt stuff. I take advantage of the very tax loops that she, Clinton, put in place.
He didn't pay any federal income tax. So
that makes
if
me
he's
smart.
paid zero.
This would signify a massive conflict of interest in any regular, objective, fair and non-corrupt person. Yet this was the duplicitous act de jure by Attorney General Merrick Garland and the Biden administration. If the situation were reversed and Trump was in office and did something like this, Democrats would demand it not stand. And given their history, they would probably file articles of impeachment, launch a criminal investigation and bring an indictment. Simply put, this is why much of the country claims Trump's indictment, no matter the legal basis for any of them, are nothing more than political persecution. The Biden administration and Democrats have demonstrated they cannot be trusted when it comes to matters of justice. If Trump broke the law, then hold him accountable. If not, leave him alone. But there shouldn't be one set of rules for people named Trump and another set entirely for those named Biden. And based on all available evidence, that's exactly how it seems to any objective person paying attention. So there you are. It seems like the reason that there cannot be a thorough investigation of the Biden business affairs is because a thorough investigation would reveal corruption. I think many of us intuit that. Presumably even people that have strong fealty to the Democratic Party on some level recognize that there is corruption within the system, that there is corruption within the Biden family, and what they would probably say is, yeah, but it ain't as bad as the Trumps. What I would say is there shouldn't be corruption of this degree in any of the institutions of government that we, the people, pay for. What I'm saying is that this is evidence that when you take the temperature of the system, you find that it is corrupt through and through, that it is overbaked, undercooked, that it's full of salmonella, that this is a diseased feast that we're being invited to eat. And the only way that they can obscure that is through the language of politics, bureaucratic nomenclature that's confusing, obfuscating and distracting. If we spoke plainly to one another about politics, it would sound like this. Both parties are corrupt. Both parties are funded in ways that means that it's impossible for them to do their job. The Biden administration's primary function is to create the perception of difference between them and the Republicans, and in particular Trump. Plainly, they want to elevate the Trump issue to a degree that is the only thing in the political conversation. In part, it would seem because they've got a lot of corruption and hypocrisy to deal with within their own party and their own family. But that's just what I think. Why don't you let me know what you think in the comments below? If you enjoyed this video, stick around, watch another one. These are both fantastic. Remember, we make a show every single day. Join us there. Click the notification bell. Go on, click it now and subscribe to our channel. It really helps the algorithm to do what's right and bring our content to you. More important than any of that, though, is that you please, if you can, stay free.